Hello and welcome to the latest Royal Roundup from TalkTV. So pop the kettle on, this is the Royal Tea. I'm Sarah Hewson. Coming up on today's show, is soft diplomacy enough to save the Commonwealth? Developments in the Prince Andrew and Jeffrey Epstein scandal, King Charles's summer plans, the Princess of Wales's fashion choices snubbed, and the royals become animated. Joining me to discuss all that and lots more are royal commentator and TalkTV regular Afua Hagan, the Mirror's royal editor Russell Myers, and the host of Us Weekly's Royally Us podcast, Christine Ross. Now, senior royals are readying themselves for 2 years of worldwide tours in an attempt to use soft diplomacy to re-engage Commonwealth countries. King Charles is said to be intending to visit Samoa and Kenya, while William and Kate are expected to visit Singapore in the autumn. Russell, we've had a pretty slow period in terms of overseas visits, partly because of COVID, partly because of the death of the late Queen. How important is it for them to be seen to be getting out and about, and where?
Well, I think we're all watching and waiting to see what they do. I mean, Buckingham Palace has spoken about this transitional year. They doubled down on that during the Sovereign Grant meeting, and we're coming to the end of that now. And I think we would have expected a bit more activity, certainly from the senior royals, because, talk about slimmed-down monarchy, there's not a lot of them left. I mean, and I think that King Charles has wanted to get to grips with the sort of mechanics of what the palace machine is all about, and maybe sort of royal tours was put on the back burner. But, of course, we're expecting him to travel to not only the Commonwealth, but the British realms as well. And what's that mean for his standing, his reign? Because, of course, we had the Prince and Princess of Wales tour of the Caribbean, which really didn't get off to a good start or end. So that's very, very important for his reign. And I think that when you look at the realms especially, if they do decide to start to leave, that could create a domino effect. And you talk about soft diplomacy. Well, it's fantastic to have the King and the royal family as part of that mechanism for the government. But I think the real big question will be where the sort of soft power lies in keeping the realms and their relationship with the crown.
And that is really important, isn't it? Russell mentioned there a fear, the disaster, I think we can say, that was the PR around the now Prince and Princess of Wales's tour of the Caribbean. Lessons certainly must have been learnt from that.
I would hope so, because it really wasn't a complete PR disaster. And what they need to do, like Russell so rightly pointed out, is they need to get out into the realms and the Commonwealth countries pretty quickly to make sure that they feel that they are still relevant and that they are still important. Now, when it comes to the realms, we had the Prince and Princess of Wales, the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, as they were then, in Jamaica, which was a complete PR disaster. What I would do if I was them, I would bring in people who would be able to say to them, look, this might feel okay to you, but when we look at it through a lens, or when it's printed in the paper, it's going to look like this. And this is what it's going to say. And you have to think about the history, and you have to think about the background and why you're there, and all the rest of it. So they have a lot to do to redeem themselves. Getting in better advisors would be number one. And, we have the 14 countries of the realms left. They need to be visited pronto. I would have thought by now that the royal family would have been out, would have been doing the meeting, greeting and using the soft diplomacy, and they haven't. I think that's very telling. I also think the Commonwealth countries need to be visited as well, if the royal family still feel that with the King as the head of the Commonwealth is still very important to them. Obviously, the realms will be more important, and the Commonwealth is a bit of a separate issue. But also, feelings within those countries, when we talk about the realms, when we talk about Jamaica, where the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, as they were known there, went, their Prime Minister, Holness, this week has been talking about the fact that they are going to become a republic, that they will be putting that to a vote, and probably will come as early as 2024, and that they are going ahead with those plans. He also said that William and Kate are always welcome to come to Jamaica, but their feeling is that we don't want to be part of the British realms. We don't need the royal family to be our head of state. We don't need the monarchy to be in charge. More countries are going to go that way. without visits or with them. But it would do well for the monarchy and do well for the royal family to be getting out to the realms and to be getting out to the Commonwealth sooner rather than later.
And Christine, in terms of soft diplomacy and assets, the children, the Wales children, are pretty good diplomatic assets, aren't they? If they do a full family tour.
Absolutely. I think
that
we
speaks
saw
volumes.
Absolutely. We saw real evidence of this in the Australia-New Zealand tour years ago when George was just a baby, you know, throwing the Bilby toy. It's still an iconic photo of the British royal family on tour because people were so charmed by it. It's such a powerful tool. William and Kate are obviously, they're fiercely protective of their children. They want them to have as normal of an upbringing as possible. I can't think of anything as abnormal as taking them on a royal tour, but it really will one day be part of their lives, part of their role. So it's an interesting balance that they have to strike, but to not use the children as a valuable tool would sort of be a misfire, I think, you know, from their part, because people love them. I think of Prince George's recent birthday photos, how many people just remarked on how grown up he was. And it really brings people together in a strange way to see the children, which would just be the ultimate charm offensive.
And I mentioned on the King's schedule, Kenya looking highly likely. Kenya, of course, plays a key part in royal history, the place where Queen Elizabeth became Queen. It would be a very poignant visit because of that for the King.
Yeah, I think we've heard over the last few days about 2 years of tours coming up. I mean, I was told this sort of when that transitional element was just happening in the early days, and certainly the wheels have moved very, very slowly. You talk about the optics of why they would go to Kenya. Of course, there's that relationship in royal history, and indeed, I think it would send a strong message to the Commonwealth. You know, my view is that why wouldn't they go to the realms first? I mean, you talk about Andrew Holness, the Prime Minister of Jamaica this week, was saying, you know, we are out, royal family or not, whether they come to visit, they're welcome. But I think there would be an element of maybe are they worried about the reaction? So the Commonwealth is probably a safe bet.
And what about Australia, though?
Well, again,
tour plan?
Yeah, well, I would have expected it now. I would have expected them to hit the ground running, but I think we don't necessarily sometimes appreciate this transitional element. I mean, he's going to be in the top job for hopefully 20 years or more. So it's definitely something he has to get to grips with. Perhaps next year will be a great reason to go. We've got the anniversary of Victorian independence. We've got Choggum in Samoa in October next year. So if they can tie in that, then I imagine you'll get a big Australasia tour next year.
Let's stay a bit closer to home now and talk about the royals' domestic travel plans over the summer. King Charles is set to follow tradition and visit Balmoral, and we know the stay there will be shorter this year because it's open to the public affair for 2 weeks longer. Financial benefits of that, of course. Is he less enthused by Balmoral Castle than his mother was?
I'm not sure that he's less enthused. I mean, we know that Balmoral was such a favourite of Queen Elizabeth II, but I think probably he appreciates that this year, maybe more than ever, because we are approaching, and you know, maybe 6 weeks or so time, the first anniversary of the death of Queen Elizabeth II. It will be a real focal point because that is where she died. And I think he probably appreciates that people will want to go and visit. People will want to be there. People will want to commemorate her death and her life there. So I think King Charles is probably being sacrificial and giving up a couple of weeks there. You know, he also has other places he can holiday.
He's got the Castle of May, he's got Birkmoor,
exactly.
in Scotland.
First of all. And maybe he didn't want Prince Andrew to go up for his annual jaunt.
Well, there is
which
that.
is normally at the end of July, by extending that period of allowing the public to go. I mean, I still think he will be invited, as will the rest of the family. And I think you're totally right. It's still a very special place for him, but there's other places he can go.
And for the family to get together, and they talk about, you know, just how free they are when they're on the Balmoral estate. It's also somewhere where prime ministers are invited each summer, Christine.
I think it's become such an interesting place. You know, Queen Elizabeth II very famously said it's the only place that she can sleep in the same bed for 6 weeks at a time, which I think was incredible. And it become this hub of sort of private time, but also in a public way. The prime ministers come to visit every summer. It is slightly more casual and relaxed, but how casual and relaxed can you really be in that room? But the family all comes up. We know that there's family shoots, that all the the men and some of the women go out on. And I think it's, although I'm sure some elements of work are occurring, it's on a much more relaxed basis. Everyone can sort of breathe and spend some time together in a different way.
That relaxed basis used to see the Duke of Edinburgh barbecuing.
Yes.
The late Queen doing the washing up.
Yeah, and laying the table. Can you imagine her offering coleslaw to that? So yeah, there'll be a lot of that happening. But of course, this year you have neither the Queen nor Prince Philip. So I wonder if Prince Charles, is he a dab hand at the barbecue? We don't know. Will Queen Camilla be offering up coleslaw to Rishi Sunak,
Peaches
who will
grown
be going
from her
up
own
there?
garden,
Yeah,
actually.
Yeah, and prime ministers have always had very interesting things to say about Balmoral. Margaret Thatcher wasn't a big fan. David Cameron went a few times and had a few things to say about it, which he probably shouldn't have said afterwards, revealed some secrets. Cherie Blair conceived a child there.
Leo Blair, yes.
All sorts
Conceived
happened at Balmoral.
Perhaps too much information from Cherie Blair. I mean, Margaret Thatcher absolutely hated it, didn't she?
Yeah, I think and again, that'll be an element that I think that we'll have some continuity with, and hopefully the King will be trying to put on a better performance at the Queen. I imagine she didn't suffer fools.
Maybe we'll be seeing the Sunak family attending the Braemar gathering, the Highland Games.
Absolutely, yeah. And again, this is one of the sort of concrete dates in the royal calendar. And of course, it's normally a period of relaxation, but I think that this period is going to be marred with the anniversary creeping up. So it will be quite a weird time, I imagine.
Well, reflecting on the death of the Queen, that leads us on to our next story, because plans are in motion for a Queen Elizabeth memorial to be created in the UK. The royal household and the government are understood to have been working hand in hand on the project, and the membership of the committee will be announced before the anniversary of her death on the 8th of September. Now, based on previous monarchs, Christine, what kind of memorial might we be talking about?
Well, it's so interesting because we have really iconic memorials. Think of the Victoria statue outside of Buckingham Palace, which is over the top. I mean, it's gilded, it's absolutely beautiful and iconic. But in 2023 or 2024, whenever this comes about, does that represent modern Britain and what they would like to see from this? They're going to have a tough time figuring this out and deciding what this memorial is going to look like. Because, the world is different. There's not a lot of real estate in London, although I'm sure they'll come up with something really, really beautiful. But I think the royal family is also very keen to have something that's special and represents Queen Elizabeth II, because they are being very careful with what this looks like and what other memorials to the Queen might look like.
Yes, I hadn't realised, Afua, that you can't name a pub, for example, Queen Elizabeth II. You have to get permission to use her name.
Absolutely, and the government and the royal household, upon her death, put in some quite strict rules about what you can do with the name Queen Elizabeth, what you can put the name to, what she can be named after. So things like pubs or airport terminals or whatever are going to have quite a hard time proving that they have the royal connections and proving that they, can live up to the name. And talking about what the memorial could be, yes, you do have that huge gilded statue like you talked about. The committee have also been advised to avoid things that have moving parts on water because of the problems that have been experienced with the Princess Diana memorial, a fountain that had problems with plumbing and problems with people slipping and falling in it as well. So they're having quite a long period of consultation before they decide and tell us what exactly the memorial is going to be.
I mean, you've got the Queen Mother has got a statue, George VI, a statue, Prince Albert, the Albert Hall.
Well, listen, we are in different times, as Christine said, but this needs to be magnificent. I mean, a 70-year world record reign, Queen of the world. I mean, that phrase coined before. I just think that this is something that certainly needs a lot of thought, but really does need to be befitting of her stature throughout not just this country, but the world.
How long will that committee process take,
I mean,
do you think? I mean, because when you put it in those terms,
it really will
Russell, I'm glad it's not me having to make that
Absolutely,
decision.
It will be years, won't it? Because you talk about the fact that we can't really get much done in this country. We can't get the trains to run at the moment. But this would be something that definitely needs to be befitting of the reign. I mean, the consultation with the royal family.
I was going to say, presumably the king gets final say.
One would imagine so, that the royal family will be consulted. And of course, who's going to pay for it? I mean, there'll probably be a lot of dodging through government departments at the moment to try and get the finances. But, let's have a bet. I mean, yeah, I reckon about 3 or 4 years that this will probably take.
Prince Andrew has come under fire yet again after legal papers revealed new details about the Duke's relationship with paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Court documents have suggested that disgraced financier Epstein allegedly arranged a meeting between the head of a major US bank and Prince Andrew at Buckingham Palace. The papers appear to allege that Epstein arranged the talks between Andrew and Jamie Dimon, the chief executive of JP Morgan, 3 years after the Duke had claimed to have broken off their friendship. Now, that infamous Newsnight interview at Russell saw Prince Andrew say that December 2010, when he was pictured walking through a New York park with Jeffrey Epstein, was the absolute final contact that he'd had, and at that point he was breaking off their friendship in, as he described it, the honourable way.
Indeed.
These court documents would suggest otherwise.
Yeah, and very, very damaging, not only to Prince Andrew but the royal family. Now, this is it's twofold, really. This is part of a court case against the bank being brought by the UK Virgin Islands, and a sort of a treasure trove of documents have unearthed certain emails. One of the emails talks about another 2010 conversation, a meeting that Epstein said he just had dinner, or he'd sat next to Prince Andrew. And then you have this other potential arranging of a meeting between Andrew and Jamie Dimon, who was the US bank's boss. And so this is very, very difficult for him to get out of, because these emails, certainly allegations, totally contradict what he had said. I mean, he was given ample opportunity in the Newsnight interview to say, was this the only time that you had contact with Epstein? And of course he said no. If it's proved that he did indeed was economical with the truth when he lied, then again it poses the question: what else was wrong in that interview? And I think we've been here before, haven't we, with that interview? And again, there's absolutely no way back for him for royal life, but it certainly calls into question the advice that he was being given at the time and the people he was associating with.
And I feel what strikes me is a meeting between Andrew and a US bank boss in 2013. Andrew had stepped down as the UK trade envoy 2 years previously. Why was he still being deployed in that way? Absolutely. And why was Epstein coordinating these high-powered meetings?
Absolutely. That's a really good question. Why did he need to be involved? He wasn't acting on behalf of the UK government. Maybe it was for personal interest, maybe it was for his own personal finances, but these were circles that he didn't need to be moving in, that he was still moving in. Who was advising him at that time? Who was saying to him, perhaps these are not the people you should be seen with? The rumours about Epstein were swirling for a long time, yet he was still being associated with him. If he sat next to him at dinner when he was under house arrest, for goodness sake, why was he in those rooms? He should not have been, and he should have been advised better. Maybe he was advised better and he just didn't take that advice. Maybe he felt he didn't need to. Maybe there was an element of feeling that he was above any sort of repercussions, any sort of persecution for it. But some real errors of judgment on behalf of Prince Andrew here.
And as Russell described, Christine, this is coming out because of a court case taking place. But what it means for Andrew is we're back to talking about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein.
Absolutely. This is the story that won't die. And again, it's, his royal life is dead, and this just seems to be another nail in that already closed coffin. But this story keeps returning because these little inaccuracies keep coming up. And if he had just told the truth in the first place, or some version of truth in the first place in this interview, we wouldn't be recycling through these stories the way that they are. It just continues to make Prince Andrew look worse and worse. But it also affects his family, his ex-wife, who's obviously recovering from breast cancer surgery, his daughters who are trying to forge their own lives, and unfortunately that really dark negative shadow is being cast on all of them.
Yeah, and that Newsnight interview continuing to haunt both Andrew and the rest of the royal family. Now, a former editor of Vogue International has labelled the Princess of Wales's lack of interest in jewellery a disappointment, saying that she doesn't appear to be pleased when putting it on. The fashion critic went on to add that the mother of three has an entirely different approach to precious jewels and stones than Diana. Christine, it's not often that we hear criticism of the Princess of Wales and her sartorial choices. Where has this come from? What's behind it?
Well, I think it was an interesting comparison between the Princess of Wales and the new Queen Camilla, which was maybe misplaced or unfair. Queen Camilla's obviously been in her role a lot longer, but also we're seeing this repeated with the younger generation, not just of women, but of royal women. There are lots of royal women throughout Europe, Crown Princess Mary of Denmark and the princesses in Sweden, who sort of eschew the big glamorous jewels in favour of sort of more delicate items. The Princess of Wales specifically favours local brands, British brands, smaller names, which obviously gives them a huge platform. And on the other hand, you have Queen Camilla, who, I mean, iconically wears the most massive honeycomb tiaras that she can get her, you know, that she can get out of the vault.
Thinking about when they were in Germany on the first state visit, and absolutely dripping in
Bling.
bling, yes.
And even when we look back at the coronation, there's that amazing coronation exhibit at Buckingham Palace right now that showcases Queen Camilla's coronation diamonds, which are enormous. I mean, they're really spectacular. And when you compare that to the Princess of Wales's earrings from the coronation, which she had worn before, it's a stark contrast. I don't know that it's a worthwhile criticism, but it is a contrast.
I don't know whether I see it as a negative. Is it actually someone trying to be a little less overstated, a bit more
She's not the Queen. She's not the Queen.
Yeah.
And she, you know, she will be one day. I mean,
Yeah.
I think you're totally right. It's a bit of an unfair criticism. I read that story and I thought, gosh, I mean, this is a woman who's trying to sort of not fade into the background. She's still a sort of huge personality and profile, but she doesn't want to overshadow the other people. And surely that's a plus in her character.
And also, she's younger, and so she wants a more kind of fashion-friendly look. I think it's great that she supports local brands, smaller brands, that she uses her platform to do that. I think that's a brilliant thing
because
to do.
the moment that she does so, they see their popularity,
Yeah,
sales.
you're talking about going on a royal tour. Well, if she wears a local brand from a country that she's in, I mean, it will skyrocket worldwide, and that can only be applauded.
And I think that's really smart of Kate as well. I mean, she's worth a whole lot, something like £1 billion or something to the fashion industry. She, I think, has really nailed her fashion. So she doesn't wear her jewels in the same way that Camilla does. So what? She's got her kind of own take on it, and I think that's great.
I thought it was notable this week. It was nice. Camilla did a visit to Monica Vinader, the jeweller in Norfolk, and she talked about how her granddaughters had given her a wish list for her visit there. And she was obviously, you know, very interested in the processes behind it.
This was, I think, such an interesting visit. I wish, my only criticism in this conversation, I wish Kate went with her, because the Princess of Wales has a whole bucket full of Monica Vinader jewellery. It would have been such a great opportunity for them to get together. But again, the Queen using her platform to spotlight this very British brand and sort of mentioning her granddaughters casts a younger, more youthful light on the jewellery line, on the designer.
And human, isn't it? Bringing her family.
Yes. And we've really seen
conversation.
those granddaughters come up time and time again, you know, embroidered on her coronation gown. It's nice that she brings that family spirit to things.
More joint engagements then, says Christy. And finally, two very different forms of royal iconography. The Beano is marking its 85th birthday, picturing King Charles, Queen Camilla, Prince William and the Princess of Wales on its front cover. Meanwhile, the digital artists at Storial Media have recreated members of the royal family as Barbies using artificial intelligence. Let's talk about the Beano first before we come on to the royal Barbie dolls. But the Beano cover chosen... Those on the front cover chosen by children. Yeah,
and I think that's very interesting. We talk a lot about, do the royal family have any relevance to the younger generation? And you're talking about the Beano, an iconic magazine, 85th anniversary. And I think the royal family will be absolutely chuffed by this, to be honest. I think we've seen a lot of AI at the moment, haven't we? And talk about Barbie, and I'd love to know what they think, but I think they'd be rather impressed.
But when we talk about the royals needing to reach out, particularly Charles and Camilla, the King and Queen, needing to reach out to a younger generation, and yet they were picked, they were 7th on the list of the most popular people to have at a birthday party.
Yeah, absolutely. Which shows
ahead of William and Kate.
Yeah, which shows they are cutting through and shows that they are really iconic characters. You know, on that list as well was Ant and Dec. So imagine you have a birthday party, you've got Ant and Dec in The King and Queen.
Marcus
there.
Rashford.
Marcus Rashford there as well. KSI, the rapper, I think
Yep.
is on there too. But it shows, yes, that they are cutting through and the younger generation know who they are and would want them at their birthday parties. That's got to be a good thing. Like I said, or like I will keep saying, is that they need to continue to surround themselves with younger advisors that can help them tap into these generations, because they're the ones that are going to be around longer, unfortunately.
Get them on TikTok, maybe. There you go. King and Queen setting up a TikTok.
There we
That'd
go.
be fun.
What about the Royal Barbies?
I love yes.
This is
was,
brilliant. These pictures are superb.
An AI project, which I think we're seeing all the powers, and obviously they've put this great power into Barbie animations, have created AI Barbie versions of the King and Queen, the Prince and Princess of Wales, and also the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. What's really striking about these is that they're all missing sort of iconic pieces. Like the Princess of Wales doesn't have her sapphire ring on. The King and Queen aren't really wearing crowns. They're not wearing anything that would really identify them as royals, except for the fact that they are so identifiable, so iconic that you know who it is right away.
Yeah.
The King as Ken.
Yeah.
It's quite something,
Yeah.
isn't it?
It really
I think
is.
he might be quite chuffed with
I
this.
think he will be quite chuffed. He has some real energy there. I just thought these were great, like really, really great. And you were right, Christine, that they didn't really have those, iconic pieces on, but they were so identifiable. And it has to be said, William has a lot more hair when he is Ken as well. I just thought these were great. I wish someone would make me into a Barbie.
Harry will be fuming because you remember he'd had a problem with William having a bit too much hair in certain artistic impressions.
Will we ever see Charles wearing a pink tux?
Well,
though,
you never know.
do you think?
When he was
Might
on,
he be inspired?
remember when he was on holiday and he was the hunking trunks, and
yes.
everybody was losing their minds. So I think he looks great. Again, I think they'll be very flattered about this, talking about representation and appeal to the younger generation. I mean, it's being done for them.
And perhaps heading off to the cinema to see Barbie.
You never
the
know.
movie,
You never
over
know.
their summer break. Well, that is all we've got time for this week. My thanks to Afua, Russell and Christine. We are going to be taking a break now over the summer, but we will be back in September with all of the latest on the royal family. And next week, we'll have a special edition of The Royalty, looking back on the highlights of the last year. We hope you can join us. We'll see you then.